Continue the Maimer Vehaya Bayom Hahu from the second day of Rosh Hashanah Tafshin Chav Ches 1967. So in order to explain the idea of the shofar gadol, the big shofar that will be blown in the time of Mashiach, why is it specifically a big shofar? So we quoted yesterday from the Tzemach Tzedek that the idea of a shofar and the reason why the shofar is blown on Rosh Hashanah is in order to arouse the tainug, the pleasure of Hashem in the creation of the world. Let's just try and explain that idea a little bit, and then we can continue on with this idea of the shofar. What does it mean to arouse the pleasure? When a person does something, that's action. In the action, there could be a feeling, an emotion, there could be an explanation, an understanding, that's intellect. Even more than that, there could be a desire and a will to do it. All of those are things that are limited because they go in a specific direction. An action is a limited action. It's what the person's doing. There's the feeling, the intellect, it all makes sense, and even the desire, the will, the want to do it. The deepest concept that there is pleasure. Pleasure is not something that can be explained. Even a desire, which is I want it because I want it, but the fact that I want it can also be explained. Why I have pleasure in a specific thing, why do I enjoy a certain specific thing, there's no explanation to it. And yet, pleasure is the deepest part in the levels of a person's soul, and also in the levels of spirituality. The essence of Hashem is expressed by the idea of pleasure. Pleasure meaning, this is what Hashem wants because He wants it. It's not limited to a reason. It's not limited to anything else. Just to understand that idea a little bit further, in the concept of creation, we know that Hashem created the world because Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu Liyos Lo Yizbarich Dira B'Tachtonim. Hashem had a desire. He had a will. He wanted to have a pleasure by having the creation of the world, by having a world and having a dwelling place down here. All the other reasons that can be given for the creation of the world, they're all limited because they're a reason. A reason is limited to what the reason is, whether it's an intellectual reason and the like. The deepest and greatest thing is something which has no reason. Why did Hashem do it? Because Hashem wanted it. Not because of a reason, not because He needs something, chas v'shalom. The Maggid of Mezrich said, and the Alter Rebbe brings this in a Maimer, that even the reason of Dira B'Tachtonim, of a dwelling place down here, is not the ultimate reason. Because that's also giving it a reason, that's also expressing it, that's also limiting it to a specific concept. The real reason is because He wanted it. That's why Hashem made a world. And that's the only real reason possible for why there's a creation. Sure, all the other reasons, once Hashem made a world, He also put in all the other things that happen, and all the other reasons are also true. But the ultimate reason is Hashem Himself, the essence of Hashem. Now when it comes Rosh Hashanah, right before Rosh Hashanah we say that there's what's called Durmita Dezah. Durmita Dezah in simple meaning means that the inner desire in the creation of the world, the godly energy that there is in the creation leaves. It's removed. It goes away. The creation is only an action, nothing else. Because Hashem wants that people down here should redraw down that desire, that pleasure in the creation of the world. That pleasure can be brought by one thing and one thing only, through a shofar. Now, that shofar is a similar shofar that was sounded by Matan Torah. Torah was given. The Torah was given, it revealed the essence and the essential pleasure of Hashem in the world, in the creation. The essence of what the creation is all about was revealed through the giving of the Torah. Nonetheless, we say that there were two horns in the ram by Akedas Yitzchak. The left horn, which is the smaller one, is the one that was blown by Matan Torah. The right horn, which is the bigger one, that's the one that will be blown in the time of Mashiach. And the reason for this is because the left horn shows on the outer level, the level of godliness that's connected to the world. By Matan Torah, there's a world, there's a Torah which is coming into the world. It's revealing the essence of Hashem in the world. When it comes the time of Mashiach, it's the shofar gadol, the big shofar, which is something which is much greater. So in order to understand that, we go back to what we explained yesterday. The idea of the difference between Rosh Hashanah when it comes out on Shabbos, why we don't blow shofar in the regular place, but in the Beis HaMikdash they did blow shofar. The whole purpose of the blowing of shofar is to reveal the pleasure of Hashem in the world. That pleasure is revealed already through Shabbos. That's what Shabbos is, Vayechulu. Shabbos is the completion of the creation, the pleasure in the creation of the world. Yet, the level of pleasure that's revealed through Shabbos is not the same as what's revealed in the Beis HaMikdash with the pleasure that's revealed through the blowing of shofar in the Beis HaMikdash. Because the Beis HaMikdash itself is already a level of Shabbos. The Beis HaMikdash itself is a place in creation where Hashem's purpose is revealed. And when we blow shofar in the Beis HaMikdash, we're bringing a deeper pleasure into that. That's something which even on Shabbos, even Shabbos can't do. And even more than that is Yovel. Yovel is 50 years. We mentioned earlier that this year is 50 years from when the Maimer was said. Yovel, on Yovel everything goes free. Because Yovel is called an Olam, a world. Yovel is a complete cycle of time, 7 times 7. The 50th year, the one that's above 7 times 7, the complete cycle of time, is the concept of freedom. Yuvla in Kabbalah means the world of freedom. In the Torah, it talks about everything goes free, everyone goes free, everything returns to its source, to its essence. On Yovel, and specifically on the Yom Kippur of Yovel, not on the Rosh Hashanah of Yovel, on the Yom Kippur of the Yovel year, because Yom Kippur is a day that brings out, as we mentioned yesterday, even deeper than Rosh Hashanah, the essence of everything. Yom Kippur is when the essence of a Jew is revealed, how it's one with the essence of Hashem, which is why it takes away and it washes away all the misconduct and all the things that weren't the way they should be. Rosh Hashanah, we accept Hashem as our king. There's two separate entities. Us and Hashem, we're accepting Him as a king. Yom Kippur is when the oneness that a Jew has with Hashem is revealed. On Yom Kippur of the Yovel year, which is only in the first Beis HaMikdash, that's a much greater and deeper level of pleasure. And yet even there, it may be a loud shofar. And similar to the idea that by Matan Torah, it says, Koil HaShofar Hoylech V'chazik Ma'id. The sound of the shofar was very powerful. The sound of the shofar is one that it's brought down in Sfarim. About that it says that the sound in Matan Torah was Koil Godol V'lo Yosef. It's a great sound. The sound of the shofar. The sound of the shofar yet is not the source, it's not the root, it's not the shofar itself. The sound is something, it's an expression of something that comes from the essence. The essence, the root, the essence of that which doesn't even express itself as a sound, that's the shofar, which is in the most physical place in the world. That's a regular shofar because it's still a shofar that's connected to the world. It's not beyond the world. And even Yom Kippur, which as we said yesterday, in a certain sense, Yom Kippur is Yitoka b'shofar gadol. Yom Kippur is when there's only the essence, there is nothing else. And yet even Yom Kippur comes through the avodah of a Jew. It comes through what a Jew does in this world. The ultimate shofar which is in the second level of the time of Mashiach, which is the shofar gadol. That's the big shofar that's beyond the world, that happens on its own because it can't be brought through something a person does down here. It's beyond the world. And yet, the question that we ask, and as we mentioned yesterday, is that nevertheless, we know that it says, Zehaya tchilas ma'asecha, zikaron l'yom rishon. On Rosh Hashanah we say this day is the beginning of your action. It's the remembrance for the first day. The first day of creation was Chafei Elul. Chafei Elul is connected to the world. Chafei Elul is when Hashem decided to make a world. That's not the Rosh Hashanah. Because that's not the purpose that Hashem decides to do it on His own. The ultimate purpose is when man is created. And when a person does, through his avodah, he arouses Hashem's desire in the creation of the world. It's not Hashem creating the world, because that's not the purpose. Hashem doesn't need the world. Hashem wants there to be a person down here that does, and that acts, and that blows shofar in order to arouse Hashem's inner pleasure and inner essence in the creation, which is aroused specifically by a human being, because that's where the purpose of creation is. In a human being's actions. And if that's the case, then how can we say that the shofar of Yovel and the shofar of Rosh Hashanah and the shofar of Matan Torah, all of these levels of shofar, they're all of them, it says, Yiska. There is someone who blows. It has to come through Avodah. And yet the shofar of Mashiach, it's Yitoka, it happens on its own. How could it happen on its own? The whole purpose of creation, the whole purpose of Mashiach, of revealing godliness in the world, is that a person brings it about. So it's true, it makes sense that this is something which is totally beyond the world, but yet this seems to be the opposite of everything that Rosh Hashanah stands for, opposite of everything that Mashiach stands for, that it has to come through Maseinu V'Avedaseinu, through our actions. How could we say it happens on its own? And yet, we say that it must be that it happens on its own, because when people are close in a certain sense, then you can have the blowing of a regular shofar, which can arouse them. When people are so far away, you need something that's completely beyond. It's gadol and it's Yitoka. It happens on its own. It's completely beyond anything. But how's that possible? And so this is why we need an explanation, and especially because of the fact that according to the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, when the Gemara wants to learn about blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara learns the shofar of Rosh Hashanah from the shofar of Mashiach, which means they're connected to each other. And we know that mitzvahs won't cease to exist in the time of Mashiach. Mitzvahs are forever, Torah is forever, and everything that happens from above has a connection to some type of mitzvah that we do. The shofar of Mashiach is connected to the shofar that we blow on Rosh Hashanah. And yet the Rosh Hashanah is all about, the whole point of the shofar of Rosh Hashanah is that it has to come through the avodah of a person. It has to come through a person's action. That's what the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah is, that it's not on the 25th of Elul. It's rather when there's a person, and it's that Hashem's pleasure in the world comes from a person blowing shofar. And yet we say the shofar of Mashiach is Yitoka, it happens on its own. How's that possible? Moreover, if it's something that happens on its own, what does it mean to us? Everything of Torah, the word Torah is Hayra, it's a lesson to us. This most important thing, that when Mashiach comes, a great shofar will sound, and it will arouse and awaken every Jew wherever they may be. It must also have some type of lesson and something we can do, but if it's something that will happen on its own, what can we do to bring it about? And so here, the Rebbe explains an amazing point. That the Rebbe Marash says in a Maimer, that when you blow a shofar, you blow from the narrow end, and it comes out on the wide end, which is also something which is brought in Halacha and Shulchan Aruch. And the Rebbe Marash explains that that's the idea of min hametzar karasi ka anani v'merchav ka. Specifically, the fact that I call Hashem from the constraints. Specifically, when I call Hashem from a tight position, from a position of tightness, from a position where I'm constrained. That's why, and that's what brings about that Hashem answers me in the position of the greatest breadth, of the greatest abundance. And that the Rebbe Marash explains is why it says, Shana shirasha mitchilasa, misasheres besoifa, a year that's poor in the beginning. That the Jewish people make themselves poor by blowing shofar, by begging as a poor person, becomes rich in the end, and Chassidus it explains the end means right after the blowing of the shofar. The whole idea of the blowing of the shofar is something that happens from a narrow constraint, from a place of tightness, from a place where we are tight, from a place where we are in a trouble. And specifically that brings out the greatest abundance and the greatest opening possible. That's the whole idea of a shofar. The Rebbe connects this also with what the Baal Shem Tov says. Tefillah li'ani chiyatoif. V'lefnei Hashem yishpech sicher, that the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid explain that it's specifically a poor man's prayer, which is for the essence of Hashem. A rich person, a person who has things, wants this, wants that. A poor person who has nothing, wants only lifnei Hashem, he wants Hashem, that's all he wants. He wants to have the ability to pour his prayer out to Hashem. And that's the idea of the shofar of Rosh Hashanah, the pleasure that comes from the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. The pleasure is something that comes from the greatest hardships, from the greatest tightness. And this the Rebbe explains. The oivdim and yidachim b'eretz Ashur and Eretz Mitzrayim. The very fact that there's people that are lost, that are far away from Hashem, that arouses, that itself, the tightness arouses the great shofar, and as we'll Mitzvah Hashem continue to explain tomorrow.